Welcome into the Thomas Fitch Sports Show, the final episode of this semester 2018. Until next fall, I, as usual, am your host, Thomas Fitch. So much football on this show. I am so excited about that, breaking down both the spring game and the upcoming NFL draft. Plus, Steve Helwick joins us to talk the NBA playoffs and much more. So let's get started. All right, so we're going to start off talking about the spring game, and I kind of I've talked about it last 2 weeks, kind of as a, it's a fun thing to watch. It's fun. The fans get to see the development, and it's a little bit more of an experience, of an in-game experience for the players than just their scrimmages. But in all reality, it's just another practice, and we're just watching them practice. This is not the finished result. It's like, whatever sport you played in high school, if someone was to come and watch you play a scrimmage, over the off season, or like I play golf. If someone was to come and watch me while I'm like in the middle of a lesson and they were like, he's not playing that great. Well, it's like, okay, I'm working on stuff, when you're in basketball practice, in the fall, you don't expect, that's not what you expect to be when the season starts. Also, I mean, and even the first game of the year is not where you expect to be by the end. And so I just want to preface my talk about, my analysis of the spring game that, it's nice to see them play. And I think we can take some analysis and some kind of results from it and be like, okay, this is kind of where the team is now. But you also got to realize we're months away from the start of the season, from September. And this is still not, we still have more guys coming in over the summer. There's still summer practice. There's still off-season kind of summer workouts for guys to grow. And I just think, like, you can't expect everybody to just be playing great, and have a perfect practice, because, again, this is their practice. But let's start looking at the offense. Tough to read on. I think the offense is one of the toughest to read in a spring game when you look at, I think especially for gauging quarterbacks. And that's what everybody wants to talk about in a spring game because we live in a, quarterback-dominated, football society. But, you're playing with first, the way the teams were organized, as a quarterback, you're playing with first and second string wide receivers, that you're throwing to. Your offensive line is not all the first string. It's some first string, some just kind of whoever gets fit in there, and you're going against not the first or second string defense. Just kind of a mix, and so it's hard to get a read. But here's what I would say: Buechele and Ehlinger looked decent. Ehlinger was 13 of 22, 150 yards, and Buechele was 12 of 21, 130 yards and a touchdown. Nothing, necessarily to write home about, but, again, it's not a full-length game, so it's not like, okay, well, in a regular game, you want them throwing 250 plus. But I would say neither of them really just wowed me. I think especially with what Herman had kind of said prior to the game about how happy he was about their development, about how the good job that Tim Beck had done in developing them. And I wouldn't say it was quite what I was expecting with all his praise of them. Both struggled to throw the long ball. Ehlinger, we've known, has struggled with that. Buechele has been inconsistent kind of since his first game when he just, torched Notre Dame over the air, and then all of a sudden it was like that was all gone. But I would say on the mid-range throws, they look good. One thing that really impressed me with Ehlinger early on is when he was rolling out his accuracy on the run. That was one thing I feel like he struggled with last year, is he would roll out and he would throw the ball too high, or he would lead the guy too much or too little. And I think that was just his youth, his inexperience with, I think some of it's just, you're not used to all the receivers being this fast, the defenders being this fast. And so, you have to get used to that accuracy wise, but also it's just, I think he just struggled overall with his mechanics. and he definitely seemed better. I mean, 13 to 22 is not bad, and again, not all of those are bad throws. Some of those are drops or good defense. And Ellinger had some good throws too. Sorry, not Ellinger, Buechele. Good throws across the middle for both of those guys. Buechele had a couple looks to John Burt. We're going to talk about the receivers who really, that was what impressed me the most in this game. But had John Burt a couple times just wide open. Nobody in front or behind him, and just overthrew him. And Ellinger had one deep ball in the first half that he underthrew, and I can't remember who it was that came back and made a nice catch on it. It might have been Hurd. But, you kind of have overthrow, underthrow situation, and an underthrow looks better because the guy can come back and catch it. But regardless, neither of those were accurate. Hopefully that's something that can improve over the offseason. I will say this about the offensive line. It did feel like the pass protection was better. And that was one thing that both quarterbacks struggled with was, again, a very depleted offensive line you're playing with. The second they get back and they take the ball and they step back, they have, three guys running in on them, and it's tough to make decisions, especially when you're young. And both of those guys aren't super tall to be able to see over that. The other group the group that struggled the most was the running backs. You look at Tonio Carter, who got the start on the white team, was 10 of 27. Kyle Porter, 2 touches for 4 yards. Tim Yoder was the leading rusher out of non-quarterbacks. He had 4 rushes for 24 yards. Daniel Young had 3 for 18. Just not a lot doing there. Again, more struggles in the red zone to score. The only two guys who were able to score touchdowns from like the 1-yard line was Lil Jordan Humphrey, the receiver, who had a great game, 114 total all-purpose yards. But it's Lil Jordan and Tim Yoder. If you had told me that those were the two guys who would have the best, days on the ground, I would have said that's a really bad game. But Herman said this after in his press conference afterwards. Again, it is practice. He said he wasn't actually like, in a real game, you're on the 2-yard line, you bring out your goal line package. And he said he wasn't really doing that. He doesn't have all the pieces in place because, again, you got guys on either side of the field, so you can't really get a full goal line package in play. So that is kind of relieving to be like, okay, that is true. They don't have a full goal line offense. But hopefully the run game will improve. You get Calvin Anderson coming. He's the grad transfer from Rice. That was a big grab by Herman to get him. So you get him coming in. He brings some depth and skill to the offensive line. He'll immediately be a starter. And you also bring in Keontae Ingram, who's the running back who he committed, in the spring, and so obviously didn't sign early, and so he won't be coming in until the summer. But that'll definitely help, getting another running back. Hopefully, he looks really good on tape. But again, all the guys look good on tape. But you bring him in, you bring in Anderson, hopefully the run game improves. And, again, it's one game. And so I think it's tough to tell based on one game. I think one thing that did worry me was there was some fumbles on snaps. There was also Tonio Carter had a fumble. And the reason that's big for him is he struggled with fumbles last season. Herman hates it when you fumble, and that could lead to him having some reduced playing time if that continues to go on into the next season. I almost forgot to talk about wide receivers. Wide receivers really, really good. Lil Jordan Humphrey, Colin Johnson, John Burt, Gerard Hurd, among other names. Lil Jordan led the receivers, 7 receptions, 100 yards. Colin Johnson not far behind, 6 for 91, and Gerard Hurd 4 for 89. Colin Johnson looks like a beast. 6'6", a number of balls that were just thrown up that he just skied and made incredible catches, got the toe touch, made it. There was a touchdown in the first half where he made a nice, everybody's running right because Buechele was running right, but then no one was open, and he makes a nice cut out to the left, which got him open to catch a touchdown pass. I think, I think he's a real veteran. I think he's got a really good football mind on him, a good football IQ. So I think he's going to go on and have a really good season, regardless of if it's Buechele or Ellinger throwing to him. Little Jordan Humphrey, I tell you what, I love the fact that he's little Jordan and he's 6'4", 220. Never going to get tired of that. But he was a beast running the ball. He can do so much because you can run him up the middle, you can run him on sweeps, you just get the ball to him, and he's athletic, he's tall, he's also just tough to bring down in general. Just a really good all-around, all-purpose player. He's going to be fun to watch. And then, Hurd showed off some speed. John Burt showed off incredible speed. He only had one catch for 20 yards, but he had two plays where he just burned the corner guarding him and was just wide open, showing off the track speed that we know he has. I think if he can catch the ball, which he's struggled with in the past, but if he can really catch the ball and develop his hands and then continue to get open and hopefully quarterbacks can hit him, I think he could be a really, really deadly weapon. Just so many. I mean, who is it? Brecken Hager. I forgot Brecken Hager. They threw it to him. It was a little screen. But like Brennan Eagles Brennan Eagles is a pretty big target too. So I think a lot of big targets. One thing, I think there was a pass to Brennan Eagles like in the end zone or a little fade that just was thrown into the back of the cornerback's helmet. And this is what I felt like there was a struggle last year when throwing to Colin Johnson in the end zone is the quarterbacks didn't throw it up. I mean, you got a guy who's 6'6" or 6'4" being guarded by somebody who's 6 feet or like 5'11", just throw the ball up. I mean, we know Colin Johnson is not only tall, but he can get up. Just throw that ball up. Let them get it. I don't want to see another ball thrown into the back of a cornerback's head in the end zone on a play, on a little fade route. That's just dumb, and it's a waste of, I feel like we the last couple years, especially last year, we were kind of wasting Colin Johnson's talent because he had all the talent, but we just weren't utilizing it. And I love to utilize his talent because he's going to go to the pros and he's going to be so good, and I'd hate for him to be another Texas player where we kind of look at him and go, why didn't we use him? Kind of like a Marquise Goodwin, where it's just like, man, if we had actually used him as we should have, he could have been so good and could have helped our team. So hopefully we're able to do that. But I think that's great, and I think the good receivers are going to help our quarterbacks because it's much easier to throw to an open target. Clearly Buechele and Ellinger, my take is, yeah, they've made some developments, but they're not the elite quarterback. And actually, I'm glad I brought that up. Cameron Rising and Casey Thompson both got a little bit of playing time. Thompson showed some good athleticism. Rising actually has a really good arm. He looked really accurate in his throws, made some mistakes. I don't want to see him. I would love to redshirt him this year. I'd love to not see him on the field. But he is the first guy I've seen in a while where you just look at him, you see that's a guy who could actually really lead this team. Great accuracy. Seems to just kind of have that kind of football smartness to him. If we can redshirt him and let him develop and maybe have him start next year or the year after that, he is the quarterback. He's the quarterback of the future. I don't think it's Ellinger or Buechele. I'd still love to see Ellinger start. I think he's the better of the two. But I think if this team wins games this year, it's going to be because of the defense, which we're going to talk about in a second, or because of the receiver play. It's not neither Ellinger or Buechele or the quote unquote franchise quarterbacks who are going to lead this team to a Big 12 title or whatever. But let's move on to the defense because defense looked really, really good in this game. And again, tough to decide exactly how good they are because you don't know how good the offense is that they're going against. But the biggest thing that, where you can be like, okay, offense is looking good, but so is the defense, is if the defense, maybe receivers are getting open or maybe there's a little bit of a hole up front, but when a defender comes, face to face with a guy, he's able to tackle him. And that's what this team did. There were very, very few missed tackles, lots of good just kind of open space tackling, and that's huge. That is what this team has struggled with, especially under Charlie Strong. We saw a big improvement in that last season. It's good to see that this team is doing that because that's the dumbest way and easiest way to lose a game defensively. It doesn't matter how talented you are on defense. If you can't wrap a guy up, you're in trouble. And so a lot of good tackling, whether it's up front in the linebackers or in the secondary. That's always good to see. Good run D, again, tough to say. Was that just the offense playing poorly or the front, seven really playing good. On Texas, secondary play good. I tell you what, B.J. Foster, who is one of those names who I've just been super excited about seeing him play. He almost had an incredible one-handed interception. If you haven't seen it, I don't know, look up. It's probably on like the Texas football Instagram, but wasn't a great. It was kind of an underthrown ball by Buechele to Colin Johnson, and B.J. Foster just goes up with one hand and almost brought it in. It would have been insane if he had, but kind of falls on Colin Johnson. But he's so athletic. He's going to have probably at least 3 or 4 targeting penalties called on him. Would not be surprised if that happened, because he just flies around and kind of reminiscent. You kind of talk about some running backs who are like, oh, they remind me of the 70s when guys would just put their head down and run. B.J. Foster reminds me of guys in like the kind of late 90s, 2000s, kind of like Sean Taylor type of guys, where it was like football was getting faster, but also concussion rules hadn't really gotten there, and people were just laying people out, taking off helmets. And I think B.J. Foster is that kind of player. Great football guy, so I'm excited to see him play. Maybe, like I said earlier, I said the offensive line did good in pass protection. Would have liked to have seen defensively a better pass rush. There was some pressure kind of as the game went on, but there were a lot of times where the quarterbacks just, had all the time in the pocket to just sit there, let the play develop. And, that was what happened on the touchdown I was talking about earlier where Colin Johnson made the cutback. What happens then, and you see it a lot of times, when quarterbacks have such good protection up front, it's so tough. It's one thing to kind of guard a receiver for 2 or 3 seconds, when you're in formation, you're in, like, say, a cover 3, and you're just, you're playing, deep protect. But after the 3 seconds, when the receiver starts just kind of, going either which way and just kind of improvising, it's so tough to guard as a defender. So when you have time in the pocket, it lets the receivers get to move and get open and actually shake a defender. That's what happened on that touchdown pass. And that's why the pass rush is so huge, because it doesn't matter how good the quarterback is. You give just about any quarterback. You give me 5 seconds in the pocket, I can find an open receiver just about any time. And so would love to see that be better. I did think in the second half, Orlando drew up some good blitzes from the linebackers. I think the most impressive linebacker in this game was Jeffrey McCulloch. He had 4 tackles, I believe, and 4 tackles, 3 sacks, was just kind of in the backfield the whole game, especially in the second half, when they started drawing up more of those blitzes. And that's good because he's kind of, one of the linebackers trying to step up in the role that Malik Jefferson, left when he went to he's going to the NFL draft. But McCullough has that kind of athleticism, that raw athleticism that Malik has, where he can just be one side of the field and the next thing you know, the ball's on the other and he's just there. And so it's going to be exciting to see. It's already been exciting to see his development over the spring practice. It's going to be exciting to see his development by the start of training camp, or fall practice and the regular season. Talked about B.J. Foster. I think he's an incredible athlete. Didn't get to see Caden Stearns because he hurt knee or something like that. That was unfortunate. I think he's going to be a really good young player as well. But the guy who had the best game, John Marquise Durst, never heard of the name before. And I know this roster fairly well as far as, you tell me anybody who's probably first through third string, I could tell you. And any recruits in the last couple of years, for the most part, I'd be like, oh yeah, I know that name. And from like the get-go, he made a couple tackles. Like I'm going, who's John Marquise Durst? Finished with 6 total tackles, 5 solo. Was just flying all over the field. So it's cool to see players like these who don't have the hype around them, who've just kind of worked hard and had good development. As far as kind of analyzing the defensive linemen, it's kind of tough because they know that they can't actually sack the quarterback. And so there's times where they kind of have to lay back in the end and just be like, yeah, I can't hit you. So guys like Malcolm Roach, Breckenhager, and those guys up front, I think it's and Charles Omenihu. It's kind of tough to gauge how good their performance was, but overall, really good by the defense. Todd Orlando continues to look good, and unfortunately, probably going to be gone soon. Last thing I want to talk about with this before we get to our interview with Steve Helwick is talking about punting. Because we got a new punter, Ryan Bachevsky. I think I have that down. It'd be great if I have his name. My goal is to have his name down by game 1, and I think it's Ryan Bachevsky. The cousin of Michael Dixon, the GOAT, the biggest Heisman snub in the history of the Heisman Award since Vince Young. And I think both of them, I think we should just give both of them a Heisman because they deserve it. But anyways, Ryan comes out there, first punt, and I love it. It shows how good Michael Dixon was, because never in the history of Texas have people watched a punter at a spring game so intently. And there was like the first punt when Bachevsky goes back there, it's like the whole stadium just like got silent and was just watching him. And he just crushes this kick 59 yards, and we're like, oh, we're good. He's going to win the Heisman his sophomore year. And then he went on to like shank a bunch of punts. His averages are a little skewed because he punted for both sides, but for the white team, it was 5 punts, 195 yards, averaging a 39. And for the orange team, it was 3 punts, 134 yards, averaging 44.7. Still, 44, that was what Michael Dixon averaged last season, but clearly not as good as Dixon. But let's be real, Michael Dixon wasn't that good his freshman year. I mean, he had a big shank against Oklahoma State that cost us the game. So in saying that, I say first impression, Bachevsky looks better at the start than Dixon has. Hopefully he can develop as the time goes. Who knows if he can develop, but hopefully he can become like his cousin. Other thing, Joshua Rowland actually looked decent. He was 2 for 2. Made a 29-yarder and a 50-yarder. The 50-yarder was the big deal at the end of the second quarter, at end of the half, because we've struggled so much as far as the kicking game has gone last couple years, and to see him kind of come in and clearly he's been developing over the offseason. So it's great to see that there's been some kicking development. Again, 2 kicks, hard to gauge off of how good he is, off of just 2 kicks, but still good to see some field goals see some field goals go in. All right. Right now, we're now going to swing it over to the Steve Helwick interview. All right. Welcome back into the Thomas Fitch Sports Show. Now joining me, Steve Helwick, our NBA guru, specialist. So we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs going on right now. Let's start with the Spurs-Warriors series. Where do and really focusing on the Spurs aspect of this right now, where do the Spurs go in the offseason?
It's going to be a very complicated offseason. They have a lot of free agents this offseason, and I don't know. This is the first Spurs season where I feel like retaining the roster isn't going to be the goal. I mean, you have guys like Patty Mills and Pau Gasol who got paid last offseason, and now those contracts look to be as if they are overpaid, especially Pau Gasol, who's aging, 3 years, $48 million. Does he still have anything left on the table? But they had the extension with Aldridge, and obviously that's huge. But obviously the number one priority is keeping Kawhi Leonard. You don't want to trade a player like that. No. And I know the Spurs haven't had drama in the past, and if Greg Popovich stays as head coach, and only if Popovich stays, I believe the Spurs can get this sorted out. I mean, he had his little petty thing referring to LaMarcus as a great player, always there for teammates, and saying you'll have to ask Kawhi's camp. So there was obvious frustration there, but I think Adrian Wojnarowski had a story about how the Spurs are going to try to repair this fractured relationship. If not, Kawhi has one more year, I think, before his player option, and then the Spurs would probably seek out trade options. I know the Lakers and Clippers are hungry. I've seen even reports Celtics, although that doesn't make sense because the Celtics have so much young talent and assets. I'd just stick with that rather than a Kawhi who we don't know what his injury is going to be like, how that's going to impact the rest of his career. I mean, no one wants to be the next Derrick Rose or Grant Hill on the Magic.
So if Kawhi was to leave, hopefully not, but who do the Spurs go after then, or is it kind of just try to build up internally?
You have to trade for some young assets. I mean, if a team like Boston did offer something like a Jason Tatum or a Jaylen Brown,
Right.
Those are 2 top 5 picks. They have a ton of potential. I think those are guys that the Spurs could develop into being Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
Remember, though, the Spurs, 9 games from Kawhi Leonard this year, and he wasn't even fully healthy. They still won 47 games
Right.
without a star player. So I think players, maybe in free agency or trade, could look at the Spurs team under Popovich and say that they're just a piece away from contending again. We saw last year they're up 23 on the Warriors before Kawhi goes down.
Yep.
Arguably a finals team just a year ago. Kawhi doesn't play, and then they're down. So they're close. They just need to get this whole situation sorted out still.
Is there any chance they go after, or there's, LeBron goes after them, they go after LeBron? Any chance he's wearing the silver and black next year?
We saw LeBron last night.
We're going to talk about that in a second.
He's staying a Cavalier for life. I mean, the way he got onto that scores table, embrace the city of Cleveland. Could you really see him leaving again? I know we like to act like he has a rift with his teammates in Cleveland and Dan Gilbert, but I can't see him leaving again. I feel like that would be that would hurt his legacy a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely would. But also, I kind of want him to, just to leave, because I need another reason to hate him. Because I'm kind of running out of reasons at this point. He says the nice thing about Pop, and then I'm like, crap, I can't hate this guy anymore. Give me something. But I don't know. I think it could be interesting to see him go to a team like the 76ers.
That would give him, I think, more than Kevin Durant got for going to the Warriors.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, that would be... I mean, the Sixers are probably going to win a title in the next 5 years, maybe multiple, even without LeBron.
Yeah.
You get Ben Simmons, that jump shot, Joel Embiid healthy, Markelle Fultz improves, the Sixers are going to win that title.
Yeah.
And if LeBron jumps ship to go to Philadelphia and to insert him in that lineup in place of if Redick leaves, or you could put Covington at the 2, that team's, I think, instant title favorites maybe over the Warriors. Given how Ben Simmons develops.
Yeah. Let's keep going in the playoffs. So Rockets won the series, Warriors won the series. So the top 2 seeds from the West have moved on to the second round. Of these 2 teams, which are the favorite right now and to win the West?
I believe it's the Warriors. It's Steve Kerr is an incredible coach. He's had these good playoff runs before. Curry's been banged up his ankle the last couple years in the playoffs, and Kerr still found a way to win without him.
Yeah.
They breezed by San Antonio in 3 games, won Game 5 closely. The Rockets breezed by Minnesota too, but you're not going to beat the Warriors by trying to play the same style as them. Right,
and that's kind of what the Rockets do.
The Rockets are like a diet Warriors, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And I think if Steph Curry really wanted to play against the Spurs, I think he's 90%. The way he warms up, he's already looking great.
He looks basically good to go. I mean, it doesn't surprise me he didn't play against the Spurs when they were in control of the whole series. There's no reason to risk him getting injured.
You have 3 other All-Stars. There's absolutely no point in putting Curry out there.
Yeah. Now, are they also still the 2 favorites to be meeting in the Western Conference, or do you think there's any other team? The Pelicans somehow swept the Blazers, coming out of nowhere. Thunder, Jazz, who knows what's going to happen there? Thunder look like a different team every game, every quarter. There's a different team stepping on the court. Any team a threat to knock them off?
I'm definitely not going to go with the Pelicans. Warriors win that in 4 or 5. The only reason I'd say 5 is if Anthony Davis has like a 40-20 monster game, and Drew Holiday and Rondo play similar defense than they did against the Blazers. But I think the Warriors are so much harder to contain. They have more depth than Portland does. I mean, Portland throws out Pat Connaughton when Lillard and McCollum are on the bench, while Golden State has guys like Sean Livingston, who's deadly from mid-range, and Quinn Cook, who can even handle the ball, make plays. So
Nick Young.
Yeah, the Warriors are just so much harder to defend, and I think that's going to take more of a toll on Rondo and Holiday, because the Pelicans don't have depth. They play 8 players, and their starters play almost 40 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Mirotic, Etuan Moore, Anthony Davis, and then the backcourt of Rondo and Holiday. this Pelicans team, I didn't even think they'd get past the Blazers.
Yeah.
And I don't think that their luck sustains for another round. And now you're talking the top of the bracket. Before last night, I would have said the Jazz could get the Rockets to 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
The Jazz were playing that good.
Right.
Donovan Mitchell, he's not afraid of the big scene in his rookie year.
Mm-mm.
Rudy Gobert had been playing excellent defense. He got in foul trouble last night. That's one concern. And James Harden drawing fouls. Harden's going to attack Gobert all the time. The threes weren't falling as much late in the game last night. That's one of the worst blown leads in recent playoff memory. You're up 25 in a potential closeout game against the Thunder. Everyone wrote them off, and then the Jazz just crumbled.
It wasn't even like 25 like midway through the third quarter, and then the Thunder kind of slowly. It was like 25. Next thing you know, it was 15. Next thing you know, the game was tied going into the fourth quarter. I mean, it happened so fast. But now looking at that series, Jazz still lead 3-2 in the series. Goes back to Utah. Who has the momentum, right? I mean, I would assume the Thunder have the momentum, but going back to Utah, can the Jazz find that momentum easily enough to close out the series at home?
I've looked at each fan base in the playoffs, and I think this year, some of the best home court advantages in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Those Utah fans have been rabid, whether
Mitt
it's a
Romney.
push-off P chance, Mitt Romney with the jersey, over his custom jersey over his long-sleeve shirt, taunting Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
The Utah fans have been rabid. They've done a great job supporting their home crowd. Utah has a different sense of energy, it feels like, when they play there. And Oklahoma City, they looked inspired at home last night. I don't think they could have done something like that on the road.
Right.
It's about playing for the home fans. Ricky Rubio, he finally got shut down by Westbrook a little. 4 of 14 last night. I think Rubio is going to have a better game in Game 6. It's a toss-up, but I think whoever wins Game 6 wins the series, if that makes sense. Obviously, if the Jazz win, but if the Thunder win...
And then they come back home.
Then the Jazz would have blown a 3-1 lead.
What does either a win in the series or a loss in the series say about Westbrook's kind of career as a whole? Like, how does that affect his legacy?
I don't know if it's much Westbrook is just what the Thunder built this offseason.
Yeah.
When you get 3 ball-dominant superstars like Russell Westbrook, Paul George, I'm not even going to call Carmelo Anthony a superstar.
No.
He's not. He's definitely not anymore.
No.
But he's a ball-dominant player.
Right.
And whoever, Sam Presti was praised at the time, but those players just didn't seem to mix. You can't just, this is the difference between a team like the Warriors who get stars and the Rockets who got stars that work for their system versus a team that's just playing blacktop and 2K and just picking up guys that have all-star appearances. They don't play well together.
No.
It's a bunch of iso ball.
Yeah.
We are seeing a more talented Thunder team get ousted by a Jazz team whose best players are Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, who combined for 0 all-star appearances when the Thunder combined for who knows how many.
Something really high, yeah.
Jazz just play better team basketball, run a better offense. They give more effort and heart defensively, which the Thunder don't. I mean, when Westbrook tries to play defense, he's incredible. Steven Adams very good.
Yeah.
But then there's weak points. I mean, Joe Ingles is saucing up Paul George right now.
Toby Flenderson. Have you not seen? You got to look this up. There's a little comparison of Toby Flenderson and Joe Ingles, and they look the exact same.
Who's that?
From The Office.
Oh.
So
okay,
look it up. They look the same. I will say one thing that's hurting the Thunder defensively is losing Ajay Roberson. That's one of the best defenders in the league
and the worst offensive player in the league.
That is true. And Corey Brewer has actually stepped up. That was a good, I think, addition by the Thunder. But you do lose a lot of the defensive impact of him. But yeah, offensively, he's just terrible. Let's go to the Eastern Conference. You talked about LeBron earlier. Clutch buzzer beater to beat the Pacers. Does this say that he's all-time clutch?
I guess so. I mean, he had that one in the last playoff buzzer beater I can remember was in 2015. I think it was game 4 against the Bulls. It was right after Derrick Rose hit his. He had a buzzer beater there. Then he had the one in 2009 in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Magic. I mean, he's diminished from big moments in the finals before. 2011's obviously the most notorious, and he struggled to come last year in 2014. He struggled to come back against those Spurs and Warriors teams that were just so much more dominant than his team. So he's had flaws there. Actually, there weren't too many close games in this series, but I don't know. Clutch, it's an odd topic, odd thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would disagree that, like, compared to guys like Kobe, who hit so many game-winning shots. I mean, Russell Westbrook last season had like 5 or 6 game-winning shots in one season. And when we talk about LeBron being clutch, we think about like a time in 2013 and a time in 2011. Like, that's not just like, I don't think LeBron's a poor like end of game player, but I don't think he's like, when you think of clutch players, you think of, you need a guy to hit a game-winning shot. LeBron's not even in my top 5. I don't think.
When you say that, the first player I think of is Joe Johnson. No, I'm being serious.
Yeah.
He has like the most buzzer beaters and game-winning shots in the last decade.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, clutch does not even equal really good.
Yes, I mean, LeBron's obviously going to get the most opportunities in there.
Right.
Because he's the best player on his team.
Yeah. Well, I think that was one reason, last season when Westbrook had so many of those game-winning shots. It's because he was like the only good player on the team. And so I think LeBron's kind of having the similar thing this year where it's like, you're the only player, you're only like competent scorer on this team right now. So you're going to have to step up. And so I think some of that's why he's being clutch is he's a good player, and you put a good player in a situation to win enough times and they're going to hit a clutch shot every now and then. But
well, if J.R. Smith caught that inbounds pass, that shot's going up. And J.R. is going to try to be the hero. So LeBron's not going to get every opportunity.
No, that's
for the
true.
Cavs.
That's true.
But I think it's fair to say he's a clutch player now.
Yeah.
I mean, he had the game-winning shot against the Timberwolves. How many players hit back in February, I think,
or
January?
That's true.
It was February, before the trade deadline. I remember Isaiah Thomas trying to jump on him and like LeBron shoving him out of the huddle.
Oh, throwback to when Isaiah Thomas was on the Cavs.
Anytime you can hit multiple buzzer beaters in a season, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's terrific. And LeBron James has done that. And anytime you do it in the playoffs, that's even more incredible.
Right.
So
now, prior to the game-winning shot, there's a questionable call.
Very questionable.
I saw you had some tweets about that. It looked to many people to be a goaltend.
It was a goaltend. The rule is you can pin something against the backboard, but once it hits the backboard, that shot is on its way up, and there's nothing you can do about it as a defender. And LeBron James got the benefit of the doubt there.
Like usual.
Like usual. He got the benefit of the doubt there on Oladipo's layup. It was a good move by Oladipo. He got past the defense, got that up quickly, so that was good. Although he could have dished it to Sabonis or Turner. I think someone was sitting there for an open too. But the one thing I'd like to point out, because everyone wants to know, why does it matter? Because
because he hits the three, and so that would have. But
I'm going to say, here's why it matters, because I think that layup goes up. You have, there's still like 5 or 6 seconds left, because before it comes down, rattles off for the rebound, and the Cavs get it and call a timeout. Instead, you'd have the Pacers up 2, and the Cavs are going to run a completely different play. When there's a tie game, you're going to run a lower risk play at the end of the game because there's nothing to lose. Really.
Exactly.
So you're going to shoot something like LeBron, just a step back 3. Wasn't too high percentage of a shot, but you don't have a risk of
you miss it. Okay, you go to overtime.
Yeah, you're not going to turn it over. You're not going to have when ISO. You're not going to have a player set a moving screen, offensive foul, something bad that happens. So you just run the low risk play.
Right.
Had it were tied, I think they would have done something. Probably LeBron drives to the hoop because. I mean, that's a play I'm envisioning, I think, from the 2013 Eastern Conference Finals when he goes past the Pacers.
Right, much higher percentage. I mean, even if you don't make the basket, you know, there's a chance you get fouled, get to the line.
Yes, but the reason you won't do that in a tie game is things can go wrong there, and you might, especially when there's such little time left.
Yes.
I'm talking about the time constraint.
Yeah.
When there's time constraint in the tie game, you're not going to want to drive to the hoop because you don't know if that look's going to be there or you're going to shoot something off balance.
Yeah.
So that is why I think that the goaltend actually does matter, because I think it changes what the Cavs run next. Basketball, and it's also a reaction thing. The players, it's a different demeanor, I think, when you're down 2 than when it's tied.
Yeah.
I said the nothing to lose thing. So it does matter.
Yeah.
It was an incorrect call. I don't know if the last 2-minute report comes out, which is the most pointless thing ever.
That's the dumbest thing.
We screwed up. There's nothing we can do about it now. Now Cavs can have a closeout game in Game 6.
Yeah. That's a shame. Now, am I wrong to say that can't they review that?
I haven't seen the goaltends review. I mean, there was a timeout after they could.
Okay.
I don't know what the rules is. I know in the G League you can. I don't know what the rules on that are. I know that they've missed calls like that before.
Right.
One notable one is Spurs Thunder Game 6, 2014, Manu Ginobili.
Yeah.
Ibaka block.
That was when there was like the 6 blown plays where it was like Ginobili maybe stepped over the line on the inbounds, and then was that
No,
play?
no.
That was a couple years later.
This is the year that the Spurs went to the finals.
Yes,
they won the game in OT.
Right.
But before that, Ginobili had a layup and it was blocked by Ibaka.
Yes, that's
but
right.
It went off the backboard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a play.
It's bang bang. Yeah. It's really tough, but
it should be reviewable.
Yeah,
I think,
definitely should be reviewable.
In at least the last minute or something.
Also in the East, you have the Raptors as the number 1 seed, Celtics number 1 seed. Both teams have had some struggle to kind of close out, win in the last couple days in 2-2 series, but now both lead 3-2. So let's start with the Raptors-Wizards series. Does this series go to a Game 7?
I'm finally going to trust the Raptors to close this. I keep wanting to say this is a different Raptors team.
They said every game is Game 7. So Game 6 is Game 7.
If Dwayne Casey told this team play like it's the playoffs, that he said something wrong. You need to tell them to play like this is a regular season. But I'm happy for the Raptors that their bench is finally stepping up in the playoffs. This is the best bench they've had during their current playoff streak, which is dated back to 2014. DeLon Wright carried the team last night. He made a ton of clutch buckets, kept scoring in the last couple minutes. He hit the dagger 3 in the game, and DeLon Wright had 18 points on 10 shots when DeMar DeRozan had 17 on 17. DeLon Wright went 7 of 10 shooting, 3 of 4 from three-point. He had an incredibly efficient game. Then guys off the bench, OG on he's a starter, but just newer faces on the Raptors. The guys that aren't Lowry and DeRozan are stepping up. Ibaka had 23 last night. Very efficient game from him. Good defense all around. But it's just Lowry and DeRozan. One of them needs to play well. You can't have the two combined for 28 points. You need to have one of them scoring 28 points.
Yeah, that's true.
And they disappeared in games 3 and 4 after having early leads over the Wizards both times. I'm still not trusting the Raptors to advance further than the first round, but they're not going to lose to this 8-seed Wizards team. This Wizards team reminds me of the Thunder in the fact of their underachieving. They don't seem to have good team chemistry.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of flaws with them.
Yeah, so that kind of brings me to the next question. This is a very good question. Who is your favorite in the East? Kind of follow up. Could both 1 and 2 seeds be upset in the second round? Again, assuming that both 1 and 2 seeds make it to the second round.
I think the Celtics win in 7. I think the home team wins every game that series.
Yep.
And I said I think the Raptors win in 6.
Yeah.
I think the East will be all chalk in the first round. And then the Cavs are going to win Game 6, and the Sixers already won in 5.
Yeah.
I know the Sixers are the Vegas favorites right now, and I think that they are better and more talented than the Cavaliers.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to pick Cleveland.
Right.
Because I'm going to pick Cleveland every single year until either LeBron is gone or they prove me otherwise. It's sort of like how I'm going to put Alabama on my playoff every year, Patriots in the Super Bowl. Yes, I know the Cavs have had a rough season, but you never know when they're just going to have a couple games in the series when JR finally goes off from 3, when Kevin Love finally steps up and becomes a scorer, because it's probably bound to happen. They're going to get past the Pacers, and based on the last 2 regular season matchups against the Raptors we saw, I think they're better than the Raptors. And given how the Raptors have played against the Wizards, that further backs it up. I'm not saying the Cavs have played that well against the Pacers.
Right.
All 3 games,
I would say they're
won.
playing a better Pacers team than the Raptors are playing in the Wizards.
Yes. And all 3 games the Cavs have won, they've barely won in the series. But I can't see LeBron James losing to DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, the guys he has been able to crush for years in the playoffs. He swept them a year ago. And I know missing Kyrie is going to hurt, and missing a lot of veterans, having first-time playoff guys like
Right.
Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr. and guys like that on the roster. But I'm still going to say the Cavs will make the finals.
And
then
then what about
guess what?
so Cavs make so Sixers don't so but
I
you
think
so
Cavs-
you have Cavs Sixers Eastern Conference Finals.
In 7.
Wow.
The Cavs-
That would be a fantastic series.
The Cavs aren't going to stop Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
But Embiid's had his good games, and then he's had games where
Right.
he goes 2 of 11 like he did
Yeah.
in Game 4. But the Sixers team has been so good in the second half. They've had guys like Redick and Covington and even Ilyasova and Bellinelli, so many pieces step
Right.
up, and they've been so great in fourth quarters. I think the Heat outplayed them in like all 5 first halves.
Yeah.
But the Sixers close out so well. Ben Simmons, he's not he's a rookie, but he's not playing like a
Right,
rookie.
right.
He already has like a veteran presence.
Yeah.
Give him a jump shot and he's good. I'm still waiting for him to hit that 3-pointer he needs to hit in his career.
It's crazy to think that like I would consider Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons as kind of like the veterans of this team, just because, I mean, Embiid's been there for a couple years, but I think it shows that the leadership of those guys and just the ability and then the play of those guys at such a young age.
You got the veteran shooters too. Bellinelli has
Yeah.
a title with the Spurs.
Yeah.
And then you have J.J. Redick, who was part of the 2009 finals, very long-time veteran. I think the Sixers did a great job of building this roster. You need defense. You have guys like Covington, Embiid. You need shooters. You have Bellinelli, Ilyasova, Redick, so many guys. You passing, Ben Simmons, C.J. McConnell. They have depth at every single position.
Yeah.
And Saric, too, I haven't even mentioned yet. He's played phenomenally in the playoffs. They are a better team than the Cavaliers. And I think that, it's so hard to pick the Cavaliers over them because
I know.
the Cavaliers aren't a better team, but just the fact that they have LeBron James and he's been to 7 straight finals, I can't say otherwise.
Wow. It's hard to argue with that. I mean, every year there's the team that's finally taken down the Cavs who aren't looking as good.
The 2015 Hawks couldn't do it. The 2016 Raptors, the 13 and 14 Pacers, the 17 Celtics.
Yeah. Every year.
I mean, a lot of those did face injuries, like Isaiah Thomas and Kyle Korver and Horford.
Yeah, that's true. But still, I mean, LeBron just finds ways. So you have it set up. Cavs, Warriors, 4 years in a row.
Sweep.
Who wins it this time?
It's a sweep. I'd rather have a sweep. I think I'd rather have a sweep of any other series than Cavs Warriors Part 4, even if it went to 7.
Yeah.
Because we've seen the movie before way too many times.
Yes. Sequel was all right. The third one, you're like, okay.
We know the Warriors are going to win. We know there's absolutely no way if the Cavs make the finals that they're going to beat the Warriors.
Right.
Honestly, it's just we want to see something else at this point. The biggest question is who wins finals MVP, honestly. And I think the Warriors should just try to get it to JaVale or Swaggy.
That would be
just to show how great they are.
Yeah, that would definitely be a power move. You remember 2018 who the MVP was? Yeah, JaVale McGee.
Yeah, just get up early. But if that happens, it's going to be such a boring NBA Finals.
Yeah.
The true finals will be the series between the Cavs and Sixers and the Warriors and Rockets. I think those are going to be fun series.
Right.
I think both of those go 6 games or longer. So
and then the winner of the West wins it.
Yeah.
So Rockets take care of the Cavs or Sixers, you think, as well?
Yes. I compare the Sixers team to the 2012 Thunder because they have so much youth.
Yeah.
On talent alone, they can make the finals. But on just playoff experience, Brett Brown, this is his first playoffs.
Yeah.
And the whole team together. I said this will be the worst Sixers team we might see for like the next decade.
That's wild.
And
they
can make,
but
and they're
it makes
Vegas
sense.
and they're Vegas favorites to make the finals. But I think they can make it on talent alone. But once they get to the finals, like that 2012 Thunder, you see a team that loses in 5 games. They win game 1, get crushed most of the other series. I don't think they'd have a shot. I can't see the East winning unless Utah makes the finals.
And that's probably not going to happen. All right, well that's all the questions. Steve, thanks for joining us. Our last guest on the last show of the semester. So, Steve, thanks again.
You're welcome.
All right, so we are going to wrap up the show with a little NFL draft talk. I'm going to give a little kind of mock draft, just kind of top 10 guys. I think that's going on tonight. I don't follow the kind of draft pre-hype. I think it's a little bit overhyped, like a lot of things in sports over the offseason, but it's still a fun time to, always great to talk football when it's not football season. So we're going to start off number one, and this isn't like exactly like my predictions. It's kind of a mix of who I think they're going to take and who I think would be best for them, kind of a little bit of both. Number one, Cleveland, Sam Darnold. The reason I say that, I swear 2 days ago, it was like Adam Schefter reports Cleveland definitely taking, who was it? Josh Allen. And then or maybe that was yesterday. Then today it was like, I wake up, Adam Schefter reports Cleveland probably going to take Baker Mayfield. And like last week, it was Cleveland probably going to take Sam Darnold. So who knows? Supposedly Cleveland does. You would hope so. But the reason I say Sam Darnold is he is the most conservative pick of all of these guys. You're not taking a risk. Josh Allen's a risk as far as how good is he really. Baker Mayfield's a risk as far as height concerns and as far as off the field stuff. Even though I would say he's probably the most developed of all the quarterbacks. Darnold not the most developed, but also out of Rosen, Mayfield, and Allen, I think he's the one that looks the best with the least amount of red flags, is what I would say. And so I think he goes number one. Then number two with the Giants, I think if Cleveland takes a quarterback at number one, Giants almost unanimously going Saquon Barkley. I think Barkley may be a little overhyped. I think he's still going to be a good player. Maybe it's just that I kind of hate Penn State for no apparent reason. Well, they stole James Franklin from Vanderbilt, but I think Barkley will have. I think he's going to go on and have a good career. Maybe not a great career, but I think he's going to have a good career. I think good athlete. I think you see a lot of running backs who are busts, but I think the last couple of years you see guys Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette who have played well. So I think Barkley may not be the worst pick, and I think it's a good pick for the Giants. I think other teams may like the Browns. It's like, okay, you really do need a quarterback. Now the Browns also have a different circumstance with having the fourth pick as well. But for the Giants, they have a quarterback in Eli Manning. They have receivers with Odell Beckham, Sterling Shepard, and possibly the possibility of adding Des Bryant. They have a decent defense. What they need and what they really haven't had since Tiki Barber is a good running back, and they could really find that in Saquon Barkley. And the other thing that Saquon Barkley brings is he's a good all-around player. He can not just run the ball, but he can also, he can catch the ball in the backfield. He can run it on sweeps. So really multi-dimensional player, and I think he has that aspect and would be really a real asset to the Giants. And number three is the Jets. Everything I've heard say, well, okay, not everything. A lot of the things I've heard say the Jets have their minds set and they want Baker Mayfield. And that's why they got up. That's why they traded up there, is because did they trade up there? It was because they really want Baker Mayfield. I believe they did trade up there. And now there's some reports that say they're going to go with Rosen there, but I think Mayfield would fit in that system well. I don't really know what their system is, but I just kind of see it. I would love, personally, this is my opinion. I love the fact that I can just share my opinion. I kind of get bogged down in the whole, being on air. I can't say we and all that stuff. I'd love to see Baker Mayfield go to the Browns. Just get destroyed. But again, personal opinion. But I think he goes to the Jets. In all honesty, I think he may be the best quarterback out of this draft, maybe at least at first, because again, like I said, I think he's the most finished product out of everybody. I mean, the dude's like 28, but he's like 23 years old in all reality. He's the oldest. He's played for a while, so I think he's fairly developed. The question is just how can he adapt? Clearly, other short quarterbacks. Some short quarterbacks have developed fine. Russell Wilson, Drew Brees. Some have struggled. And definitely has some red flags with his off-the-field issues. Some teams love the fact that, love his intensity. Some teams don't. I think the Jets do like that. And so I think he goes there. 4 is Cleveland again. I think it's pretty unanimous that if they take a quarterback at number 1, there's a good chance they take Bradley Chubb, the defensive end from NC State, at number 4. I think that's a good pick to go along with Myles Garrett, who was their first-round draft pick last year. I think that develops their defense. They've addressed a quarterback need, and they got Jarvis Landry. So now you're kind of starting to see a team really kind of take place in Cleveland. I think they go Sam Darnold, Bradley Chubb, and I think you say, okay, that's a successful draft. 5, Denver. For a while, I've been hearing Josh Allen there. I'm going to go with Josh Allen, even though a lot of people have said Quentin Nelson could be there, the offensive guard from Notre Dame, and we'll talk about him in a second. But I think Josh Allen, I think Denver goes after another quarterback. I think Josh Allen could be a good fit there. I don't know. Maybe it's just the fact that he's from Wyoming and going to Colorado is like, out west or whatever. I have no idea how good Josh Allen's going to be, but I know he's tall. I know he has big hands, good fingertip speed. So I know that. As far as how good he'll actually do, we'll see. Had some problematic tweets coming up. It'll be interesting to see if that drops him. Here's what I'll say. I don't want to talk too much about the tweets. I don't want to get too political. Here's what I will say. He did it a long time ago. I'm surprised the tweets are just now resurfacing with his names. Well, I guess what happened is some team supposedly released the tweets today like nobody else had found them. I mean, I swear people make a living going on Twitter and just every time somebody blows up, let's find a problematic tweet, because everybody has one. I mean, we're all idiots, especially in junior high and high school. But some team released them today and because they want him to slide, which is so funny that they want to put out these red flags because they want the guy with the red. It's wild. NFL execs are wild. But here's what I will say about it. He completely owned up to it. And the tweets were dumb. They were largely racist or just inappropriate. But the fact that he just immediately owned up to it, that shows that, this was in 2012. We were talking 6 years later. That has to reduce some of the red flags and be like, okay, this is a guy who clearly, he knew that happened, and he's owning up for the mistake, and he's saying, hey, it was my bad. That's the kind of quarterback you want. The quarterback who makes mistakes and say, hey, I'm not going to go around pointing fingers saying, oh, you ran the wrong route or you needed a curl earlier, or guys, I'm doing my part on this team, but he's going to own up. And I think if an NFL exec is truly looking at this, they see, okay, this is a guy who, probably did some dumb stuff, but the fact that he's willing to apologize and own up to it immediately, that's a good sign. So I think he goes 5 to Denver. 6, the Colts. I've heard that the Colts may want to trade this away. They're definitely looking for people to trade, but I think the Colts stay here. They take Quentin Nelson. I think if the Broncos take Quentin Nelson at 5 and Josh Allen or one of those quarterbacks is still available, I think that's where you would really likely see a trade scenario going on with the Colts, with a team trying, say the Cardinals, trying to trade up to get that, to get a quarterback in the top 10. But if Denver goes Josh Allen number 5, I think Quentin Nelson would be a great fit for the Colts because it gives them some more protection for Andrew Luck, who struggled with injuries, and you're trying to get him back and keep him healthy. People are saying, most people say Quentin Nelson's the number 1 overall player in this draft, but because the first 5 teams are so, quarterback needy, he can slip down to number 6, which is a huge help to whoever gets him because just an incredible athlete. Some people are saying, he's being drafted with the gold Hall of Fame jacket on already. It's probably too soon, because of injuries and stuff. But the point is, he's an incredible athlete. Moving on to 7, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What I hear, this is all hearsay. Who knows if this is gonna I could be completely wrong. I just kind of read a couple mock drafts and spitting it out. But Tampa Bay needs a safety. They have a decent offense, but what they really lack is a safety or could be a cornerback, but something in the secondary So kind of, Minka Fitzpatrick, Derwin James, kind of the two safeties up there. People kind of going back and forth over which is better. Most people, I think, would say Derwin James is a better, kind of like Baker Mayfield, better finished product, but Minka Fitzpatrick has a better upside. So I'm going to say Minka Fitzpatrick here. A lot of people have him higher on the draft boards, but wouldn't be surprised to see either Minka Fitzpatrick or Derwin James go to the Buccaneers. At 8, Chicago, Roquan Smith is who I have, the linebacker from Georgia. Really great player. Played some really good games in the college football playoff. I would say consistent tackler, good football IQ. I think that's a smart pick for the Bears. Now, if Quentin Nelson is somehow slips to where he's available at number 8, I think the Bears swallow him up. But and I think that could happen if you can if there's some chaos as far as trades up front with people, if other teams outside the top 10 are trying to trade up to get a top 10 or to get one of those quarterbacks, guys like Quentin Nelson, Minka Fitzpatrick, Derwin James could kind of fall down lower to other teams. Then 49ers, I think they either take Derwin James or Minka Fitzpatrick, whichever of those is available at the time. There's a chance that maybe they kind of maybe they go for, a quarterback. But I think if one of these guys are available, I think they take them. So obviously that would mean Derwin James from Florida State. Both James Fitzpatrick, great athletes, going to probably have great careers. At number 10, Oakland, I think this is pretty much, if he's there, Raiders are picking him, like, no doubt. The second the pick comes in, the second they're on the clock, they're handing the card. It's Mike, I hate names. Mike McGlinchey, something like that. Mike McGlinchey, he's a offensive tackle, and he's from Notre Dame. Are there two? Yeah, man, I tell you what, Notre Dame produces some really good offensive linemen for how poorly they've done. Well, I guess they had a decent season last year, but offensive tackle, again, I think it'd be a smart pick, protecting your young quarterback in Derek Carr. So I think if he's available there, I think they swallow him up immediately, no hesitation. If he's not, who knows who they go? Maybe Connor Williams, but I don't think so. I think Williams slips back, and I think a lot of talent of really talented prospects are going to slip farther back in this draft because it's so quarterback heavy, and everybody's just thinking quarterback, and so I think he could slip back farther, which is, I think the players are bummed that I think guys care too much about where they get drafted. Everybody wants to be the number 1 draft pick. Like, why? Why do you want to go to Cleveland? I mean, Lamar Jackson, Mason, those guys are sitting fat. All right, Lamar Jackson, I'm going to go I'm going to go somewhere. Well, he actually may get taken a little bit earlier, but for a while when he was can he project to go to the Patriots? I'm Lamar Jackson. I'm thinking I'm going to have a couple Super Bowl rings. I don't even have to play and get CTE. I'm just going to watch Tom Brady, get taught by the best coach in the NFL, and then I'm going to go play and have a great career. Whereas, going to the Jets or the Browns and, I'm going to go work on, at a place who's had 50 quarterbacks in the last 3 years, get destroyed, forget my kid's name at age 26. But hey, I'm making a bigger signing bonus than you. So I think that's kind of my little take on the draft, that, I get why there's a lot of pride in there. And I think, it's a lot of guys who, they're tired of these big, execs talking about them and asking them dumb questions and, all that stuff. But, I think when it comes down to it, I think the smart thing is I would want to be drafted later on in the first, I'd still want to be a first round draft pick, but I don't want a good team to take me. So yeah, that's my take on the NFL draft. That is tonight. So, I won't have reactions to that. This is the last show of the semester because finals, and it just, everything gets crazy because I still have to go to school. But I am in school, for people who don't know. Thomas Fitch of the Thomas Fitch Sports Show is a college journalism major. But anyways, that's going to do it for this semester. Thanks to everybody who's come on as a guest, who's just watched the show, who's supported me. Been a lot of fun doing it this semester. Really special thanks to the guests who kind of came on second half after basketball season was over, because I was thinking, okay, what am I going to talk about? Because, I can't talk about Texas baseball for a while, but had a lot of good guests who came on. And if you're one of those guests, you know who you are. So special thanks to those. Special shout out to my my graphics design intern, Wade Adler. All you who watch the show probably have seen the little intro and outro, little graphic video that he does, or that he made for me. But anyways, hopefully I'll be back next semester. We'll be talking football, Texas football, like not spring practice, like a real game. So excited for that. But anyways, from the Thomas Fitch Sports Show, I'm Thomas Fitch. Hook 'em horns.
Let go of everything.